They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies, a place where sunlight is a privilege and silence is a weapon. Every wall, every corridor, every breath is controlled, not by guards but by the system itself. Deep in the Colorado desert stands a fortress few will ever see, and even fewer will survive unchanged. Officially, it's called the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, or simply ADX Florence. But to the men trapped inside, it's known by another name, the clean version of hell. Here, America's most dangerous inmates, cartel bosses, terrorists, and serial killers, are buried alive in concrete cells for 23 hours a day. No handshakes, no voices, no sunlight. Yet even here in total isolation, the human spirit tries to fight back. Some break, some adapt, and some find a way to turn the world's toughest prison into their own kind of kingdom. Tonight, we step inside those walls to uncover what it truly means to survive ADX Florence. The road to ADX begins long before the gates. 85 miles south of Denver, the highway cuts through empty desert, miles of nothing but wind and dust. Then the silhouette appears. A massive complex surrounded by layers of razor wire motion sensors and gun towers. New inmates arrive here in silence. No family, no goodbyes, no trial left to fight. Only the slow realization that this is the end of the line. When the transport bus stops, they're escorted out, shackled hand to ankle, black hoods over their heads. A CO whispers to the driver, "Once you come here, you don't come back." The intake is mechanical. Fingerprint, photograph, full body scan, every movement recorded, every sound captured. Then the strip search, invasive, humiliating, repeated. They're handed their uniform, a thin orange jumpsuit, and led down a corridor that seems to stretch into infinity. Echoes bounce off cold concrete walls. The air smells like disinfectant and fear. At the end of that hallway waits a thick steel door, their new world. Inside, a cell smaller than most bathrooms, 7 by 12 feet, a concrete bed, a steel toilet, a slot in the door for food, and one narrow slit in the wall, a window, pointed at nothing but sky and razor wire. This is home. At ADX, routine isn't just a schedule. It's a science designed to erase individuality, emotion, and memory. Every inmate wakes to the same metallic clang at 5 a.m. Lights on. No sound, no conversation. Only the distant hum of ventilation systems. Breakfast is delivered through the slot. A paper tray with powdered eggs, milk, and sometimes fruit. The guards never open the door fully. They speak only in commands. Step back. Face the wall. Hands through the slot. Each day follows the same loop. 23 hours in the cell. 1 hour in what's called a recreation pen. An outdoor cage no bigger than a parking space. Even here, there's no human contact. Just sky, if you crane your neck enough to see it through the mesh. Showers happen 3 times a week, 1 inmate at a time. The water's timed. 5 minutes, no more. Every book, every letter, every call is monitored. Even legal mail is scanned. Privacy doesn't exist here, because privacy means control lost. And yet, amid all this order, something always stirs beneath the surface, whispers through the vents, taps on the pipes, the Morse code of the forgotten. Because no matter how strong the walls, the human mind always looks for a way out. Most men crumble within months. The silence becomes unbearable. Their thoughts start echoing too loud to ignore. But a few adapt. They learn to bend the system, to live inside it. Take Thomas Silverstein, a name whispered with both fear and respect. Convicted of multiple murders, Silverstein spent over 36 years in solitary confinement, longer than any federal prisoner in U.S. history. He called his cell a tomb made of steel and silence. To stay sane, he built routines. Push-ups, meditation, drawing with pencil stubs on prison issue paper. He wrote letters to no one, just to hear the scratch of a pen. And somehow, through pure discipline, he survived until his death in 2019. Then there's Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He once said he didn't need human contact Because he was in contact with God. He prays 5 times a day, eats little, and stares at the wall as if reading something invisible. ADX isn't just about punishment. It's about watching the mind unravel or evolve. For some, the isolation kills. For others, it becomes a test, a dark mirror reflecting what they truly are. As one former guard put it, you see men start to fade. They don't even realize it. The hardest part about ADX isn't surviving the violence. It's surviving yourself. For decades, ADX Florence has been called escape-proof. Every door locked by steel, every hallway watched by cameras. But no prison built by man is perfect. In 2012, a rare moment shattered the illusion of total control. Inside one of the isolation blocks, an inmate, Eric Robert Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber, began noticing a pattern. A guard who cut corners, a timing gap during cell checks. Others noticed too, and in a place where seconds mean survival, that small mistake became an opening. It was an escape attempt, not in the physical sense. It was mental rebellion. Prisoners began communicating through air vents, passing coded notes through food slots, even using reflections on stainless steel mirrors to signal across corridors. The guards clamped down fast, full lockdown, full strip, full silence. But for those few moments, ADX lost something it had always maintained: absolute psychological control. There were darker moments, too. Moments the Bureau of Prisons still refuses to discuss publicly. An officer once found a message carved deep into a cell wall. You can't cage a mind that refuses to die. The inmate who wrote it was later found unresponsive, gone before the morning count. In ADX, death doesn't always come from violence. It comes from the slow erosion of hope. Even the guards, men trained to be emotionless, started to feel it. The silence seeps into your bones, they said. One correctional officer described it as hearing ghosts in your own head. The system runs like clockwork, but inside, it's a pressure cooker. And when that pressure explodes, even the strongest walls can't contain it. If you think isolation breaks everyone, think again. Some of the most feared men in America use ADX like a command center, because behind those steel doors, power doesn't vanish. It transforms. Take El Chapo Guzman, the Mexican drug lord. After his 2019 conviction, he was sent to ADX, his final stop after a lifetime of escapes. Now, he spends 23 hours a day in a concrete box. But intelligence reports suggest that even there, his network continues to move. Messages coded into letters. Instructions passed through lawyers. Contacts embedded in the smallest exchanges. The world's toughest prison became his silent throne. Then there's Larry Hoover, founder of the Gangster Disciples. He's been in ADX since the 1990s, yet his name still echoes on the streets of Chicago. Investigators claim that Hoover once ran a criminal empire from inside, using hidden messages, legal mail, and visiting rooms as channels of command. Even from his cell, his influence stretches miles beyond the razor wire. ADX doesn't just hold the dangerous. It holds the powerful, the ones who turn the system into their chessboard. And for the guards who walk these halls, that's the paradox. They control every door, every step, every meal. Yet somehow, some inmates still find a way to control the game. In a place where silence reigns, sound becomes both enemy and comfort. Former inmates describe nights where the hum of the air vents becomes deafening, a constant mechanical heartbeat. Sometimes it's broken by the echo of someone shouting down the corridor, not at anyone, just to hear a voice. Psychologists who've studied solitary confinement call it sensory starvation. When the brain is deprived of external stimuli, it starts creating its own voices, footsteps, visions. At ADX, hallucinations aren't a rarity. They're a side effect of survival. One former inmate, interviewed years later under a pseudonym, said, "The walls start breathing. You start talking to shadows. You start believing they're talking back." Another wrote that the worst torture wasn't physical. It was the absence of time. No sunrise, no sunset, just lights on, lights off. Days bleed into weeks, weeks into years. The only calendar is the sound of footsteps outside the door, the rhythm of other lives passing by. Some prisoners, desperate for sensation, injure themselves just to feel something. Others begin writing endless letters to judges, journalists, even strangers, hoping someone will remember they exist. In ADX Florence, insanity isn't a disease. It's the price of endurance. Make no mistake, ADX isn't just a prison. It's a laboratory of behavior. Every movement is measured, every reaction studied. Psychologists, wardens, and federal officials use it as a model, a template for how to control without violence. Cells are designed for minimal sound. Food trays are standardized to prevent contraband. Even the color palette, beige, gray, and white, is scientifically chosen to reduce aggression. But there's a chilling truth beneath the data. The system doesn't just manage danger, it manufactures obedience. By breaking men down to their smallest routines, ADX creates predictability, and predictability is control. Yet over time, cracks began to show. Civil rights lawsuits were filed. Former guards spoke out about the toll on their own mental health. One said, "We're not guarding inmates, we're guarding ghosts." In 2015, reforms were announced: limited recreation mental health checks, and a step-down program to help inmates transition out of isolation. But even those who left say the silence never really ends. It follows you long after the door opens. In the history of ADX Florence, only one man ever came close to escaping: Richard Lee McNair. A master of manipulation, McNair once escaped another federal prison by mailing himself out in a crate of mailbags. But when he arrived at ADX, the game was over. He studied the guards, memorized routines, even mapped the echo of footsteps through the corridor. For months he planned, but the deeper he plotted, the more he realized there was no physical way out. The walls weren't just made of concrete and steel. They were made of attention. Every second, every sound, every movement was watched. Even the air vents had motion sensors. In the end, McNair abandoned his plan and did something more dangerous. He stopped speaking altogether. Days passed, then weeks. When guards finally entered his cell, they found his journal filled with one haunting line, repeated over and over: "The body is trapped, but the mind can travel." That's what ADX does. It forces men to retreat inside themselves until reality becomes optional. But the damage doesn't stay behind the walls. When inmates are finally transferred out, some can't handle the noise of the outside world. They flinch at conversation, panic at open spaces. Their entire sense of safety was built around isolation. One former inmate said, "You forget how to be human. You forget what voices sound like." The system was designed to contain the worst of the worst: terrorists, mob bosses, serial killers. But in doing so, it created a psychological wound so deep that even freedom feels like another kind of prison. So what does it mean to survive ADX Florence? Not everyone does, at least not completely. Some cling to religion. Some lose themselves in art, writing, or ritual. And some, like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, use intellect as armor, analyzing, studying, documenting his own descent into silence until his final years. Others invent entire worlds inside their heads, imaginary families, conversations, even landscapes, a form of controlled insanity that becomes survival. One psychiatrist once said, "ADX Florence isn't where America sends people to die. It's where America sends people to disappear." But sometimes, even disappearance can't erase a story. Letters smuggled out, legal documents leaked, interviews with former staff, all paint the same chilling picture. Behind the myth of control, there are human beings struggling to remember what it means to feel. And perhaps that's the truest punishment of all. When you stand outside ADX Florence, it's silent. You don't hear screaming or gunfire or riots, only the wind over the desert. It looks peaceful. But inside those walls are men who haven't seen another human face in decades. Some deserve to be there, their crimes unspeakable. But others, mentally ill offenders, low-level accomplices, even whistleblowers, once placed there for their protection. Over the years, advocacy groups and journalists have questioned whether ADX is justice or something darker. One guard described the feeling best. You walk out of there every day knowing you left part of your soul inside. America built ADX to control chaos, but in the process, it built something that questions our definition of justice itself. Because if punishment erases humanity, both theirs and ours, then what's left? ADX Florence still stands, silent, unbreakable, eternal. Inside its walls, hundreds of men wake each morning to the same dim light, the same concrete silence. Some pray, some plan. Most just wait. They've been buried alive in a system designed to forget them. But stories have a way of escaping, even from the tightest cages. Because the truth about ADX isn't just about the men inside. It's about the lengths we'll go to control fear, and the price we pay when we succeed. This is a story of survival in a place built to end it. The story of ADX Florence, the world's toughest prison.